Welcome to Three Grown Girls, a podcast where we discuss issues that affect women as they navigate the 21st century. This is a space created by Jamaican women to discuss topics of importance to us. We're talking relationships, money, career, and the varied things in between. Through it all, we encourage women to live their best lives. As women in our 40s and with the benefit of hindsight and experience, we nurture this space, a safe space to explore the lived experiences not only of ourselves, but also of others. Our co hosts include yours truly, Petre, the cool, calm, and collected voice of reason, or, so I'm told, the candid and spirited Caroline, who says what others are thinking but won't say, and Sarah, who always holds us down with an analytical and spiritual viewpoint. Thank you for joining. We are happy you are here. Now, don't forget to share this podcast with a friend and stay tuned.
Welcome back to another amazing episode. Today, my co host and I will be discussing stay at home women in the 21st century. Now, this topic came out of a conversation I had with a group of women, and we were discussing work life balance, juggling a career and a family. And the question was asked, if you had a choice, would you be a stay at home woman, mom, or wife? Taking on the core child rearing duties, taking care of your partner, and generally being responsible for the home. Or as us Jamaican like to say, stay home and wash, cook, and clean. It was interesting to learn from this discussion. Most women, mind you, these are women who are doing well in their respective careers, agree that they would all stay home if given the choice. I found this interesting because if we take into consideration all the progress that women have been able to make, to be able to go outside of the home and work, the women's right movement of the 19th century, for example, and the feminist movement of the 20th century and what we see happening today, has afforded us the right to self-determination, especially as it relates to things like gender equality, the right to an education and career. So given all of this and all we have done to attain these rights, it is worth discussing why there are women in this century who would give it all up to step back into the 1950s. Let's hear what my co-host thinks about this. Do you think that women who choose to stay at home are choosing to step back into traditional roles, or are women more traditional than we think?
Well, for me, I don't see it as a setback. You mentioned the right to self determination. And I think part of that right to self determination is the choice to stay home if you wish. No, I am truly happy, really, really happy about where we are now. I know that we have a far way to go in terms of women's rights. And I know I sit on the side of privilege in terms of, you mentioned the women rights movement and all of that and what they would have fought for, and I'm now benefiting from. But I think it should be okay even now in 2022. If a woman wants to stay home, it should be okay because we all place value on different things, and that might be something important who chooses to stay home.
Um,
Right.
per- right. Personally, I do agree with Sarah to an extent. Not to an extent. I agree with Sarah on the point that this right to self-determination includes the choice to say, look, I am okay with staying home or I want to stay home. However, I think that beyond that, women are a little exhausted. And I think in a previous discussion, I would have said that, would have shared the same sentiment that I'm a mother, a wife, and a professional. Honestly, it's an exhausting um, endeavor. And so, were the issue to arise in my own particular situation, I would perhaps think second thoughts about whether I would want, at least for a short time, to to stay at home for a little bit. You know, for one thing, I'd be able to get a lot more rest um, than I currently do. I'm exhausted, and yeah, and I believe that a lot of women are kind of getting to that place where they are exhausted. And so if they, you know, some of them are taking stock of their own kind of personal finances, and if they have a few assets somewhere, you know, or if they have a spouse who is in a good financial position, and you know, they do the maths as we say in Jamaica, it might be that they say, all right, let me step back from this just a little bit. So I think exhaustion is kind of catching up to women in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
um and then I think they talk about the right to self-determinism. I think it more or to self-determination. I think more and more women are saying, well, okay, actually have the, you know, if I have some options I can exercise, why shouldn't I exercise the option to stay home? And maybe that is a function of women of a certain age, quite possibly, where, you know, when you're in your 20s, you're sort of all about the feminist ideas, a lot of us. But as you get a little bit older, you come a little bit more into yourself, you start to have the
Right.
kids, you realize that, all right, maybe I'm not going to cotton too much to this whole
Yeah.
feminist idea.
Well,
Yeah, and so you're a bit more comfortable in the choice that
right.
you make. Yeah, and so I think those two things, exhaustion and being a little bit more comfortable in your skin, in the ecosystem that we currently exist in.
Why, for me, I really don't see it like that. I think women have the right to choose and you're free to choose what you want to choose.
Yes.
But just to go on record, me never spend all the money going to school. My mother beat it to them if you go get education and
My mother
I
too.
go give it all up to stay in the kitchen
Yes.
and cook my food every day and I run down.
No,
Not
but
my
Carly.
in life, no sir. However, listening to you guys, and I take the fact that some of you guys have kids, so you know that's an added dimension to the equation. So I'm not going to judge,
Right.
you know, but there are in fact research that says that you know women who stay home have healthier children. You know, they're happier because they have less stress and they get to spend more time with the family and to you know be there for all the important things. But as it relates to my life, I would be bored. See.
Oh yeah, I get the point you're making, Carolyn, and I agree with that research because growing up for a large part of my life, my mom was staying at home. And as I reflect, I loved it. I love coming home at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever it was. She being there, by 4:35, you have your hot meal and you have that time and that presenting in the backyard together, whatever, whatever. I really enjoy that. And to piggyback on the point that Peace talked about exhaustion, listen, I have seen so many of my friends struggling to
Yeah.
do it all,
Right.
right? Um, and some of them with very demanding jobs that
Right.
they have to work late hours and
Yeah. Like
um
Eve.
yeah, like me,
Now.
case in point.
Yes.
But and then they miss things happen at school and the
Mm.
parent affair, what's happening? When the crazy hot day, you're like, what
Right.
crazy hot day? And for
Yes.
some reason that come with a lot of guilt,
Right.
right? I had decided early on that yeah, I wanted a successful career, but I had decided early on from my 20s when I thought of my future children that I would sacrifice moving up the corporate ladder to be there for them. I wanted a job that I can leave at 5, but preferably a very flexible one I could leave at 3.
Right. If you need to.
That was
Yeah.
my ideal. That was my fantasy. I leave at 3, I pick up my child, and we have the rest of the day.
Right.
Right? So the balancing act
It's
is
real.
yeah.
It's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting though, because while trends are shifting away to more dads actually, you know, being full time, staying at home full time, the reality is that women are still the majority of stay at home parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you guys have mentioned more than once in conversation about the guilt that you feel when you forget something about school or forget to do something for your child.
Yeah.
Do you think this decision is largely based on gender roles?
To a large extent, from my experience, and not just my own personal experience, but looking on at my friends too, the women carry the brunt of the guilt. Even the best intention daddy, like my son have a very involved hands-on father. but most of those type of things fall on me. Right?
Yes.
And the weight of that guilt. Not sure why. I guess we could get into that, Caroline, if time permits. But I do think the brunt of it fall on us.
Right.
I think it has everything to do with gender roles. I mean, maybe there are some other factors at play, and we can try to unpack that. But I certainly credit gender roles to the situation that we're seeing. I mean, I can recall being at work late one evening, and my husband was at work late as well, and the comment from a relative was, "If I'm not coming to pick up my daughter," and I'm like, "So, my husband can come pick up my daughter?" I'm just like,
I've had experiences like
"Yeah,
that
like I'm
too.
supposed to leave at
Yeah,
5, and it's
yeah,
okay
yeah,
that my
yeah,
husband is out late."
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah,
I think that that is indicative of it. I think it's so steeped in us from a cultural place of like what women ought to do
yeah,
versus what men ought to
Yeah.
do. And even though we have the shifts in those roles and people are a little bit more fluid and so on, and the fact
yeah.
is that those
Not
traditional
Sarah.
ideas continue to dominate our social reality, and that manifests itself in so many ways. Because if my husband forgets something with respect to my daughter, he's not being like super guilty, feeling super guilty. I mean,
Mine.
yes, he regrets it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
he's
yeah,
not going to be over it and over it and over it. And I
yeah.
think that is certainly a function of our gender roles, our traditional gender roles.
It's funny you said that, P, because I remember when Amari was very young, like one ish around them age, and like I was traveling a lot those time for work, like around the island or overseas,
Hmm.
like a week at a time. Sometime, well, most time would have be a week at a time. And I remember somebody asking me that, so yeah, go, so who gonna look after the baby?
I'm like,
And I'm
Like
like,
father.
his
his
father.
father, his father will look after him.
Yes.
I do agree with you on that, that it is definitely based on gender role. And it's interesting that, even when it is the woman who's making more money, it's
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
usually the woman who will give that up to stay home. So,
Absolutely.
that's an interesting one. So, just to change gear a bit, we see that gender-based violence is a reality from lots of women.
Uh-huh.
And we're seeing this particularly as it relates to the Caribbean. So for some women, home is not really a safe space.
No.
So do you think that impact a woman's decision to, get out of the house and go to work? Because personally, if me have a man a beat me up every day, I can't stay in there with him. So I would have to find a job so I can, get out there and get away from him. So what do you guys think?
Why P go on first one the one, no?
I'm kind of mulling it. I mean, it would be right. Let me say this first. It would be interesting to kind of see what the data tells us. Because on the one hand, sort of intuitively, I'm feeling that it is women who stay home who are perhaps more likely to be victimized,
Right.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
right? But I mean, I can see situations where because a woman goes out to work, then the jealous spouse then create issues and so on and so forth. So to really kind of get into that in a meaningful way, I would love to have a look at some
Right.
what some data says, what it's showing in terms of which set of women, based on what we just said, is sort
Uh,
of more impacted um, by that whole situation. But I do take the point, Caroline, that I mean, and I think in Jamaica, in our culture here in Jamaica, I think when you grow up, your mother will tell you this idea of the Bex money. You must make sure say not Bex
wow.
out, because you have your Bex money,
You get back
right?
money.
Yeah. And so I think it's kind of in the back of the minds of a lot of women, maybe not all women, but I think a significant number of women who say, boy, you really need to get out there and dig it
Yes.
out for yourself so that you will not be disadvantaged by your spouse.
Right.
I mean, I think the other thing too is that depending on what your financial situation is, the fact is that, boy, you said two hands make work light.
Yeah.
Where you have financial
Really?
issues
Yeah.
cropping up in a relationship, it will lend itself to some
Right.
gender-based violence issues. And again, I think that might be one of the factors at play for some women and men,
Yeah.
who may encourage their wives to go out and look it, as it were.
Yeah, because I can see in the case of a woman staying home where that will create some power imbalance depending on who and who these persons are, right?
Right.
And that would allow the woman to be victimized, as you say, P, right? But in terms of going out to seek work to try and escape violence, that's what
Mm-hmm.
you were alluding to, right, Caroline?
Yes.
I can definitely see that happening, even though in situations like that, the ideal thing is to leave the relationship. I know
Right.
that's not what the
Yes.
topic of discussion that we're having this evening, but I can concur and I can see, and as P said too, it would be interesting to see that data as to how women, because that would be like a coping strategy for the
Right.
relation
Mhm.
for the situation, right?
Yes.
But further than that is I can see how if it's not the right man,
Yes.
he can use that as a tool to overpower the woman in the house because she's not earning,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
I
And
mean,
know?
when you talk about the data, you're right because if I know there's a lot of research being done now on gender-based violence since the pandemic because a lot of people are staying home more,
mhm.
and
Yes,
I don't
yes,
remember what the
yes,
research said, but there was a high number of
yes,
domestic
Domestic,
abuse and
yes.
child
yes.
abuse when
Child
they
Yes.
stay
abuse
at
too, yeah.
home.
You're
And
right, Caroline, you're
I
right.
remember it was a big thing even in Jamaica too, when
Yeah,
the schools were closed and the ministry were looking at we need to get the kids out because we don't know what they're going through at home and so
yeah,
forth. I
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
think being at home, especially in a low income family where there's a lot of pressure, external
yeah,
pressure, and not being able to manage your anger and violence, we can see it happening. But before you said what you were going to say, we're looking at women who, are choosing to give up career. So I'm not sure what percentage of those women would fall into that category.
right, right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Um, yeah.
You
Question.
That's I think that's an important point you made, though,
Right.
ladies, about the increase in the incidence of domestic violence. Because just the moment you mentioned it is when it cropped into my head that recently,
Yeah.
coming out of COVID, there was an uptick in the number of domestic violence
Right.
cases in Jamaica, to the point where I think a program or project had to be some kind of intervention, or a number of interventions were done to kind of arrest the issue. And so, the discussion kind of moved a little away from, how COVID is impacting families in kind of from a public health point of view, in terms of your physical health, to what are the sort of the social implications that flow from the existence of the pandemic. And so it is to the point that, yes, there may be a number of women who are escaping the domestic abuse instances by going to work, if only for a few hours out of each day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
And
that's actually something to think about a little bit.
right. So, staying at home, especially for working women who have career, would have had to be a calculated decision. You would have had to, say that, being there for my child, being there to sometimes help my husband to push his career for the betterment of the family is, a better choice than me being in the rat race going out there. So you're giving up earning your own money. And I see this as a backpedal. I know Sarah don't see it as a backpedal. I see that the woman who decided to go home is stepping back into the 1950s.
Yes.
So I remember I saw some article somewhere that speak to that it was actually women who were over 35. They were in the 35 to 45 age group that were identified as wanting to choose to stay home, right?
yeah.
And
That doesn't surprise me, yeah.
right.
No.
What I think personally is causing that, I think this is probably coming off the heels of where most women, not unlike ourselves, we're early 40s, who have we have gained relative, career success at different levels and degrees, attain, some level of financial security where we're not rich, but we're not dying for hunger. And we have gotten some sort of self-actualization. We have the education, we have been
Yeah,
in managerial position and have led, been managers at work and all of that. And So now that we have done that, do you think that's why women are choosing to kind of move back into traditional role? Know that okay, I've had the career, so now I can focus on another part of my life. You think it's based on age?
Um, I think that age cohort does not surprise me
Okay,
because of by a lot of women have coupled up by that time.
right.
May have started having children, and then the demands of that child rearing process, as we spoke earlier about that balancing act, right? And to tell you the truth, ladies, I think it all boils down to what you put value on.
Yeah,
And some women put a lot of value on their career and some don't. And I think what's an important point is that not all women, right, are having this career experience.
Mm-hmm.
Some women barely have high school education and them just a do a work.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Them just have a job. And them would have just love for one rich man come take them out of the job so they can go man cock up them foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of people are just not happy in their careers. They're not progressing, they're miserable. It's just about making the dollar for help feed the kids or help run the home, right? So we just have to be very contextual to know that not everybody is having the same experience. Everybody's charting up the ladder, right? And not everybody places value on the same thing. And it should be okay. I
Yeah,
believe that we should be able to give each other the grace to value what we want to value. For a lot of people, being there for their kids and seeing the difference that it makes when they're home, especially if their career field is very demanding. You understand? And there are other complexities that come into play, like if you have a child with special needs like myself, and the amount of time that you have to invest in intervention strategies and advocacy, it takes a lot. And a lot of people in those situations, the mother decide to just stay home. You understand? And I really think it should be okay, Caroline.
I am conceding it's okay for you guys. You and Peter can go home.
I
Now
never
get
say I
on
So
want
with
look
to.
here,
it.
I
hello. Let's
never
not
said
get
I want to.
hello. Let us not get carried away with this Pooh and Petra business. Um, but I do agree. I'm not surprised, and I think I said this earlier that I mean I know Caroline that you don't want us to bring up no sociology, but let me
All
still
right, got you, got you.
Go on through, go on through.
Levinson talks about the so-called seasons of man, right? And I
Mm.
think as a woman of a certain age, you would have been through a number of things. So, for example, my own personal story has to do with breast cancer. And
Mm-hmm.
having lived through something like that,
Yeah.
and having lived through COVID along with that, my priorities really have shifted. And
Mm.
so I really want to spend every waking moment with my child. Does
I
that mean
understand it.
that I want to come out of the retreat from the labor market? No, it does not. There are things I still want to achieve, but I can foresee a time when I get to a place where the
You
pace
want
is
to.
not what it is now. And I
Yeah.
think that would be a function of age. And like I say,
Yeah.
having been through some stuff where your priorities really have shifted. And I think that may well be what is happening to quite a number of women,
Right.
separate and apart from just the sheer exhaustion of it. However, I want to put this on the table that women, I think, need to be a little bit mindful in the same way that we have come through slavery, which was a terrible experience. And I figure maybe up to 3 to 5 years ago, people thought that we had progressed so wonderfully.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then we see all of these different things happening in
Ah.
particular
Good.
societies,
You
and
mean like the
you
racial
realize
tension? Mm.
exactly, right? The racial tension.
War versus
And
red.
this thing has moved away from tension. This
What?
chaos is chaos in a lot of different
We can't
spaces.
leave the men in. We can't leave the men in charge. Simple.
No, we can't. We can't.
We can't leave them in
So it
charge.
sounds bad. So I'm just saying, like,
Your rights.
yeah, I think we need to step carefully. Like, we have to be, you see, like how you said, Sarah, I think a lot of women understand that women have the right to self-determination, and so if you choose to stay home, I think that ought to be respected and so on.
Yes,
But at
yes,
the same time, understand that a significant amount of effort was put into giving us certain access to the
yes.
workplace. Um,
But no
that's
one
kind of
woman should have to carry the
commercial.
weight of
No, no,
that
I
though.
don't think so. But it says
It's a
what it
collective
takes. It
style.
says what it takes for evil to triumph is for what good men is for a few good men to do nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
No,
Um.
but what I say, I'm serious about it though. I understand it's a collective, Carlin,
Yes.
but if within my own space and my own life, I see value in staying home with my 3 children or 4 children,
Our one
um,
child. It doesn't.
or
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
child. Yeah,
Yeah.
you understand
Mm-hmm.
that, and I'm comfortable in it
Yes,
and I want to do it. I shouldn't have to carry the weight of the expectation is that all these women have fought to give me access to the workplace and now me I choose to stay home like some workless woman. It should not be mission
Hey,
like that. You understand? Because you said it at the top of the, the podcast, Caroline, that data shows that
children are
children,
better off, and so with a
yeah,
parent
in
at home.
terms of their
Mhm.
health and so
but
The
when
issue is that it doesn't have to be mommy who stays home.
right, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. So
da da
women
dee
can
da da
Yeah.
da.
And listen,
wait.
ladies, let me tell you something.
So let me just
Ma-
jump in on this one, Peter, before we move
yes,
on.
no problem.
Um,
Yes.
I want to qualify my position in two ways. One, um,
Go on,
I don't,
man.
I don't have a problem with women staying home, right? And I really, really don't consider a woman to be, worthless if she stay home. I seriously don't, right?
Right.
It is beneficial for the family. And as I said earlier, it helps the child and the household and all of that. But from a personal perspective, and Sarah, I've said this to you before, what
Yeah.
about you? Your sole purpose in life is to be a mother to Amari and a wife to your husband, and you know what? Nothing else out of life.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be
So that
vocational though. It
you
doesn't
have
have to be
to,
vocational.
but
I can be
but
and
a qualified though. I
yeah,
want,
and
yeah.
okay, okay, go ahead. I cut you,
So my
sorry.
second position is given that the work arrangement has changed, and staying at home don't necessarily mean you're staying at home doing child rearing. You can be working from home. Personally, I love working from home. I work from home and I dread the day that I have to go back into office. It works for me, but it works for me on a personal level because I'm doing it because it gives me that free time to, take care of some of my passion and do other things outside of, my core job. But if I had to do that for just a family, as I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, I would go crazy because my sole purpose in life cannot be about other people 100%. So I think that is where I'm coming from with my argument. Not that if it works for you, you shouldn't do it. But
Okay.
yeah,
On a personal level. I get you. And that underscores my point. That like for you, what you place value on and you want to go ahead with that. Another woman who chooses they do all right. A lot of women who stay home are forced. Right? I've heard women talk about stories where the man said, no, 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 woman of mine now go work. Right? And that I don't agree with. It should be your choice, right? Or you come together as a family unit and make that decision, right? But in terms of saying it can't be enough, for a lot of people, being home with their kids and seeing the value in being home is enough, and they're filled with it, they're full of it. You understand?
yes, Sarah, me need to go
Mean
find
they're
another people.
fulfilled by
Yes,
it.
me need to go find
And
another people.
it doesn't necessarily mean that okay, and you and I have talked, and
Yeah,
I tell you I had my light bulb moment when I felt like okay, my whole life is about working this job that I was in at the time and being a wife to like and a mother to a married. What about me? What about my dreams, my
yes,
hopes, my aspirations? That's important. But I can be a stay-at-home mom, not earning, and still pursuing dreams and aspirations that now I'm nothing to do with husband and pitney. Right? It doesn't have to be vocational. It doesn't have to be a earning thing. It can be a hobby. It can be many things. It can be ministry where you're serving. It can be many things
okay,
that you are fulfilled by. But I see a lot of women, them a have a lot of kids. Even that woman I get judged by these days, yeah, have too much pitney. Even all who can afford it, I get judged, but that's for another podcast. Anyway, um, and them love it. And this I want to football, the one they have ballet and them up and down and them carry them everywhere and they love it. And I believe say some of them pretend for love it, and
I
some
think so too.
yes, a lot of them pretend for love it, but a lot genuinely love it. I think so.
You know what my challenge is with this, and I would really want us not to steer too far away from it. Is that why does it invariably, predominantly, have to be women who stay home? So
Da da
yes, a
dee.
woman.
I
Listen, a
agree.
woman should choose, and we even and so even going into it with an understanding that we have been socialized or encultured a certain
Yes,
way. It is a problem that is the woman who is like the automatic
yes,
choice to
yes,
stay home, when really and truly, when you unpack the research,
yeah.
there's nothing that says women are better at staying home.
Exactly.
Well, guess what?
There really is not. I mean, so you know, so I'm sorry. I mean, I think women and men should choose. But I'm just saying it can't be that woman every time the issue come up. It's like, oh yeah, chances
It's
are mommy's gonna be the
automatically
one to
is
stay
the
home.
woman. And you guys are perpetuating that stereotype because you know you are the ones who are, and again, it goes back to being mothers and that, thing that mothers have with their children where I think they are the always the super person for their child. So you think that only you can do it best.
I
When,
think.
you
All right,
know,
finish your point.
yeah, I think that women think that they can do it best, and sometimes I remember, well, I probably don't want to get into that, but sometimes the woman think that they have more say
Mm.
over a child than the
Over child
mother.
rearing,
Yes,
yes.
so it's my
Yes.
duty, and what I say go, and then
And
the
the
mother.
capitalists, they love it when we say that.
Me,
They love it.
me know,
People
no,
like Ann Oakley will tell you that they love it.
me know say the tone very well learned, but sound very not American right now because me know say none of unu can say whatever unu want say very nice and very theoretical. None of unu no want a man where stay home. None of unu, including myself. Talk it. Talk the truth culturally. Whether because of socialization as Jamaican women, only don't want a man with another them yard. Talk the truth. Them
It,
not answer.
it, I
Anyway,
think it
I know the
depends.
truth. I know the truth. Only can talk the talk, but can you walk the
We
walk?
need hybrid arrangements. We need
Oh,
hybrid
fine,
arrangements.
Exactly,
fine, fine.
exactly.
But guess what? I don't want that. I'm very
Yes.
traditional in certain ways, and I'm
Yeah,
going to go on record to say if one of we are stay home, it's
it's you.
gotta be me.
But why though? Let's get into
Unless,
that more. Why?
me say, whether
Yes,
culturally,
why Sarah?
I am not one that is going to say I'm not affected by socialization and how missy things. I'm too old to change that mindset right now.
Okay,
But
fair
can I
enough.
tell you, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I just can't, the one person I've been with my entire adult life, he's such a go-getter and have him handling so much things. Specific to him, me can't picture him slow down and say, all right, stay home. You understand what I mean? Provision is so important to him and making sure that the family is okay and we're financially okay. I can't picture him just sit back and like, okay, all right, Sarah, you go work and me will stay home with Amari. But can I tell you though, recently with him moving here fully, moving to Canada fully, and job searching, he's home. He's like a stay-at-home dad right now. By default. By default. And I don't know if because me see him so I see him very masculine. It
Yeah,
kind of look a bit sexy seeing him staying home. But just because I know it's a temporary thing, right? Because I know it's temporary. He's job hunting and also because he and Amari would have been apart for a certain period and because it's summer. they're doing a lot of things together and a lot of father son bonding that if him they just come to Canada and just jump in a job same time, that would have robbed them of that, right? So I go to work some days, I work from home some days. I mean, him having business where must start out otherwise, right? Him ongoing business. But in terms of employment, he's looking. And it don't look too bad, but it's not something it's not something I could see long term. It does look,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know I might get enough judgment on it, but it all just look lazy for me if you see one man stay home.
Fair enough.
Listen, can I say this though? This thing
In
about
theory, you're
lazy.
talking up,
No man,
theory
no man, no
attack, and you
man, no
don't
man,
want
no
it
man.
neither. And your
No, no,
husband not
no,
stay
work with
home.
me. No, here's the thing. Because you see, we kind of included a number of caveats earlier. So for example, what staying home now looks like is a little bit
Look like,
different. So
yeah.
like you say, your husband is at home with your son, but the truth is that he's running his business and he's on the hustings for sort of
Right.
routine nine to
Yeah,
five, right?
yeah.
The same thing with my husband. My husband is a journalist. My husband can work from anywhere. So I don't have no objection to him staying home with my daughter, right? Or my stepson. And looking after them while he does whatever he does.
Fine, but what if
But
he
here
wasn't
is the
doing
thing.
that,
No,
P?
but here's the point I wanted to kind of throw in here for us. No, work with me. Here's the point I wanted to throw in here for us. Now, with my husband, I could say, like, this is an aside now. That would probably never happen.
It
My
not
husband is
serious.
my husband is like, no, he's not that guy. He's the guy who goes out and do what he does, right? But he's an excellent father. So when he's at home, he's the one, honestly speaking, who does the heavy lifting with my daughter
Yeah.
in particular, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's
Mine
nothing
too. Mine too.
sexier to me than a man who is taking care of his children. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it
You
is. It
understand?
is.
Slap on
It
an
is.
apron on him and have him in the kitchen and have him clean some stuff. What? That's the best
Yes.
thing. But here, but
But
here's
that
the
doesn't
point.
translate to stay home though.
Exactly. But here's the point I really wanted to make, and this is again something sociological. For a very long time, women have been at home, and what they do at home has been undervalued. And I feel like just based on what we're
Yes.
saying now, we
Yes.
undervalue it. We continue to undervalue it, which is
We
why we
don't
don't feel
include
like
me.
men. Well, you know what I mean, society, right? Because the truth is, staying home is not a lazy person work. It's not a lazy person business, you know.
It look
Cleaning
lazy if
house
one man do it though, P. It
no,
look
no,
lazy
no,
if
no,
one
no,
man do
no,
it.
no, no, no.
It does.
I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I don't agree.
It's a
Household work,
lot.
unpaid household work is just that work.
Yeah.
Work.
Carlin back there yap and she don't want no man we're gonna stay home.
Look here, but Sarah, but we have to be balanced in our
Yes,
discussion.
that's what I'm saying. We have to be.
We have to be balanced in our discussion and make allowances for people who do it. But on a
Yeah.
personal note, I like an alpha male. Go
Me
work money
too.
and your money
Me
must be. Yes,
too.
I like an alpha male who, I like to see him go out in the morning and know that he's taking care of responsibilities.
That's a
And
very European idea of what the alpha male is.
You think so?
Of course,
European P?
of course, it's a very European and capitalist idea. Of
No,
what the
sir.
masculine- I'm
No,
telling
sir,
you,
P. No. I disagree with that. That's more
a joke
Eastern
can make.
culture thing. No.
Which Eastern culture thing?
It's more the Western culture now is pushing this rhetoric of the daddy can stay home and they have these ads on
No.
TV.
I'm saying what they kept the idea.
alpha male, not the stay at home.
Right, yes, and
Okay.
that's the outcome. That's what I'm saying. It's a European idea that that guy is the guy who goes out and makes the bread and then comes back. That's what the capitalists want you to. That's what they want you to
I don't know if I agree. Yeah, but anyway.
Just say
We
it.
can save that discussion for next time. But
Okay.
You can.
when we look at it when we look at it more, when as feminists, and we know that many of us were raised in a time when girls were finally being told that you can be anything that you want to be when you grow up. You can make something of yourself, you can have a career and all of that. But what they didn't focus on was choosing to stay home, choosing to be mothers early, choosing to marry and have kids early, right? Once you do that, society tends to look at you as somebody said earlier, what this? But
Yeah.
being a feminist also mean having the choice to stay at home
Right.
and be a mom if you want to. Again, not for me, but for the person who decide that, that is what they want to do. It's great. So while it is inspiring to see women breaking glass ceilings and all of that. It should also be inspiring to see women, having wholesome families and taking care of their family. But, we haven't seen a lot of that.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell my mother say me nah go university.
Exactly.
Me couldn't tell her say me I go married early and being a stay at home mom. What?
Yes.
That she would have killed me
Yeah.
because even though we enjoyed her being home, it came with risk,
Yes.
right? And when that relationship ended, she was not equipped with the requisite skills to enter the job market,
Yes.
right? At that point, she had to go back to school and, keep going back to school until she found her career. And, so for her, she had like a tunnel vision
Right.
as to what life would be for her girls, especially more probably more than my brother. That for her being independent, because she felt like she didn't have a voice in that
Yes.
relationship, right? And that there was a significant power imbalance in that relationship. And then when it ended, she never have where she needed to succeed by
Right.
herself. So for her, even though you hear me and say whatever, we couldn't tell her so we are gonna do that.
Yes. Yes.
It would
And
have been World War III.
Yeah.
I think the same hold for me too. And the risks we identify, they are really real and they affect us in tangible way.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's important that women, make sure that they
Make the right
get in
decision.
positions where they're secure,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. And I have, similar experience to you, Sarah, and we have said this before when, my dad got sick when we were pretty young. My mom
Mm-hmm.
has 7 of us. And imagine 7 pick me and no father.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, she was a stay-at-home mom because she had 7 of us to take care of. So the decision was for her to stay at home and he will go out and earn.
Yeah.
When he got sick, all of that scrap. But she wasn't prepared for that. So, she had to, get up and go find a job.
Yeah.
That messed up the entire dynamic now that she's no longer home and the older ones having to take up more responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does affect the family.
Yeah.
And choosing to stay home sometimes is it's based on finance and it's just based on your circumstances. And that most of us, we grew up with from humble beginnings. We
Yeah. Yeah.
middle class
Definitely.
or rich people. So both persons have to work.
Yeah.
Petra, if you have no comment, I want to move on to talking about the financial aspect of it in more detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we talk about the financial aspect, we live in a world where you need two income to survive if you're not rich. And just the 1% might not need that two income to survive, right? People who are doing well are usually two income household
Mm-hmm.
because it's just not enough to cover, to have a decent life. Most of us are middle class, striving to be middle class, lower middle class, or something. So to have that lifestyle, we need two salary.
Mm-hmm.
How you gonna buy a house, how you gonna eat food, how you gonna drive car. So that the financial concern is a major factor why most of us really, strive for a career and all of that. What has been your experience with that?
I think here in North America, some people have decided to stay home because of the financial implication, because childcare cost is so high. And some people have in excess of one child, them have 2 3 kids, and to put them in aftercare or daycare is so expensive. So it would be that some people made the decision, say, okay, it seems like all of my income is going into childcare anyway, so may as well I stay home. But if it is that you're both earning enough that you can pay for childcare and then see a way still, then fine. Yeah, we both need to go work to be able to buy them expensive house. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, I agree with you that things are really expensive. Cost of living is high, and it's important for both to be earning if it
Right.
makes sense for that particular situation. It's circumstantial.
Mm-hmm. I think definitely financial drivers of those types of decisions. I don't think there's any debate honestly about
Yeah,
it. I think lots of people would, whichever sex, male or female, would love
yeah,
to at the very least be able to be home a little bit more with their families, but the financial realities are such that they're just not in a position to do that. And then we did talk earlier as well about the kind of more nuanced
yeah,
situations where people have different kinds of domestic situations happening.
Right.
So that becomes sort of an outlet for them to escape, at least for some time or for a portion of the day. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then Sarah, you both just talked about the situations that your mothers would have been in at a particular point in time, and then when you found yourself without the spouse, then you
yeah,
realize, boy, the risk. I mean, and the truth is that even where people, some instances, are in a kind of okay financial situation, a lot of things can happen in life. So apart
yeah,
from the loss of the
yeah,
spouse, somebody might get sick,
yep,
etc., etc. So you find that you're constantly, as a couple, trying to
mhm,
control for those types of scenarios.
yeah,
And so even if you have a little bit in the bank, you keep kind of try to plug away, just in case you have a situation that you have
Yeah.
to,
yeah,
you never really plan for. Yeah,
Yeah, those situations do call for wise financial planning if one does
exactly.
decide to stay home, because you just don't know what's going to be around the corner. You
Precisely.
understand? It has to be, oh, and life insurance too.
Yeah,
Right?
listen, ladies, let me just, this is maybe a slight segue, but look here, I endorse insurance. Do whatever it takes.
Yeah, because
You
you
need
just
a little
don't know.
insurance. Yeah.
You
we'll
just
get to
never know.
financial management in one of our podcasts for
Yes,
Yes,
sure.
yes.
definitely, definitely.
So for me, on a personal level, I love my financial freedom. I like going out to work. I like seeing when the paycheck land into my account, and I can spend it how I want. So,
Yes.
when I get the side eye on my 20th Amazon package, I can do it because I'm working and I'm making my money. So I enjoy that financial
Mm.
freedom. So before we wrap up, ladies, understanding the pros and cons of being a stay-at-home mom, woman or wife. The pro being you're able to be there for your family, less stress of being in the rat race, and being there for all the great moments in your family life. And the risk that we discuss, um, the financial risk, the physical risk of choosing to stay home. Knowing all of that and understanding the risk, and of course the pros of being stay-at-home mom. Would you, Sarah, or you, Petre, decide to stay home, give up your career, and become stay-at-home moms or woman?
I think I'm gonna go back to how I started tonight. That I respect a woman's choice to determine whether to stay home or whether to be engaged in a place of work. I think it's important for us to kind of reinforce that as a member of the sisterhood, we respect the other's right to choose to stay home. For me personally, however, uh I think it's a definite no. And it's a definite no for a number of reasons. One, I am the mother of a daughter, my one biological child, and I feel it is my duty to, not to say that I want to be prescriptive about what she does with her own life, right? Because again, it is
Right.
her right to choose what to do with her life. But the example that I want to set for her as her mother is for a woman who engages in different spaces and who makes a contribution to those different spaces. And one of those spaces is the place of work, whether that
Mm-hmm.
is functioning as an entrepreneur or, working for Bakra Massa.
Yeah.
Of course, I would prefer the former, to be, to be an entrepreneur and so on. But the point is to be engaged
Mm-hmm.
in that sort of economic space, making a contribution, in that way. I'm
Okay.
also a great believer in diversity. The fact is that our society turns on an economic system. And I think to the extent that women are able to participate and participate successfully in that economic space, society benefits. And,
Definitely.
again, I feel that we have come very far. We have fought a very hard race as women to earn the right to participate in those spaces. And I feel a sense of duty to help to defend and to perpetuate and
Yes.
to enhance our participation in those
Mm-hmm.
spaces. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mhm.
I'm going to definitely say I'm going to carry on with the good fight for the moment. No, do I need to pace myself as I go? Definitely. I'm trying to get
Right.
that balance right to the extent that balance is possible. But I think definitely I would not retreat from the world of work,
Right.
not as a mother of a daughter and in
Mhm.
this realm that we're living in at this time. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So you're not stay-at-home mom
Oh
material.
no.
For me, it's a yes and a no. My answer is not as straightforward as Peter. For a few reasons that I've actually done it for a short period in terms of moving to Canada, going to school full time and looking after Amari. And then, when the pandemic hit, I was home with Amari for a while and I felt okay about it, right? I didn't feel disenfranchised in any way. I think I have a safe space with my husband with where that is concerned. Like if I need to stay home and he carries the brunt of the financial burden, that I don't feel like there's a power imbalance, right? And I think that's a very big decision. Not a big decision, a variable that women need to consider when making the decision.
Mhm.
The type of spouse you have, and we talked about it a lot in terms of how he's going to treat you, right? So I would say yes because I I did it and it wasn't bad, but it was a unique situation. I'm going to school, and so it was like full stay at home, and then the pandemic is like a unique situation, right? As well. But I'll also quickly say no because there are certain aspirations that I have. There are certain workspaces that I want to be a part of. Um, there are other things I want to do career wise to feel like I've actualized. And yeah, there are things I want to do. And I am very grateful that I even have the choice. Because, decades gone by, centuries gone by, I would not have had the choice. So I'm very grateful that we can even have the conversation about choice. You know
Right.
what I mean? Um,
Mhm.
but so no, so it's mainly a no. If I have a choice, I'd rather participate in the workforce. But it doesn't mean, like I've said over and over, and I don't want to repeat myself. I have enough grace for a woman to not judge her if that's her choice and she feels fulfilled by that. Yeah, that's my 2 cents, Carol.
All right. When a business go about woman, we talk about we.
Oh yes, but for me,
So yes, we talk about we. So you're a yes and a
no.
no.
Yes.
Peter is a no, and Petrie, I five. I
Dana, high five me.
no, no, and you have to remember, I don't have the benefit of having to take care of children. So I don't have that perspective. So I can give you moms that, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I think that, I my life is about me too. And I'm very big on taking care of me. And
Mm-hmm.
part of taking care of me is about, the things that feeds me, learning, teaching, going out there
Mm-hmm.
and having an impact on the workforce. and bringing some of all my knowledge that I've gained over the years, being 40 little bit, and being able to have my own sense of self in that space.
Right.
Of course, I would never give it up to stay home. And
Yeah.
Ernest and I joke a lot about when he wins the lottery, because he buys lottery every week. We have to come up with some numbers to give him so we will win the lottery. And interestingly, he keeps saying that if he wins, it doesn't matter how much money, he needs to have a job.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying that I would need to travel first and then settle on, maybe having a business or doing something that is
Right.
career driven, maybe not working for somebody, but having that career and maybe building a business, or doing something, but not necessarily just being that stay at home person. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting conversation. So, we can all agree that societal expectations sometimes make women feel that they have to choose between their families and career. And, with women rights, as we know, comes women choices. One of the choice is whether or not you want to go out there and work or you want to stay home with your family. And as Sarah has been reinforcing, women should be okay to choose what works for them and their family. So if one woman decides to work outside the home and another woman decides to stay at home, there are going to be trade-offs to
Mm-hmm.
making this decision. But I think I have to concede that it's a woman's personal decision, and it's important that the choice you make is right for you, your situation, and your family. Thank you very much for listening. We will see you at our next podcast.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.